So we did the other week an essay of Rabbi Yonatan Halevy on a few Kabbalistic concepts of, we first talked about Gehenom. What is Gehenom? Gei ben Hinnom. And we spoke about this valley where people were murdering their children for Molech and how Hashem commands us to stay away from the worship of Molech. And we're now continuing in the same book of Rabbi Yonatan Halevy. Rabbi Yonatan Halevy was a Kabbalist from Baghdad. And he's going to tell us, according to Kabbalah, what is Olam Haba? What is the next world? What is Yemot HaMashiach? What are the days of Mashiach? What are we waiting for? What is happening? What is going on? And I have to give a disclaimer. There are a number of different opinions in the Jewish community as to how these things work. The writings of Rabbi Yonatan Halevy are closest to my heart because I studied them when I was much younger, and this is a book that I connected to very much. But I'll tell you, in general, in the Jewish world, the acceptance of Kabbalah as an absolute fact is not unanimous. And I've shared this in this class before. There is Tanakh. That is the only books that we have that come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Meaning, when we have concepts in Tanakh, nobody in the world can say, oh, something that says in the Torah is not true. Everybody has to follow the Tanakh. The words of the Mishnah and the Talmud, say the Rambam, are the final books. Whatever it says in the Talmud, whatever we decided in the Talmud, every Jew in the world has to accept. This is a person can be considered a kofar, a heretic, if they say, oh, I don't accept the teachings of the Talmud. Because even though we're people of the Torah, Shebichtav, of the written Torah, we also believe that Hashem gave us an oral Torah. That is a fact. What is the oral Torah? Says the Rambam, the end is the Talmud. Anything that comes afterwards can be authoritative. Meaning, you can have a rabbi, a chief gaon in Bavel, and he can make a decree, in my community, this is the law. Yeah, the Rambam did, right. He can do that. But he can't expect that everybody else in the Jewish community is going to listen to it. It now only is authoritative for the community in which you live. That being said, you have some interesting questions about books that we discovered after the sealing of the Talmud. So for example, the Zohar. The book of the Zohar we know about. There is a book of Zohar. The Gemara mentions a book of Zohar. But we didn't have the book of the Zohar for many, many, many years. And there are a few rabbis who did have. The Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, quotes from the Zohar. But we see from his writings that he didn't necessarily have a complete Zohar. He had pieces of the Zohar. There was a rabbi named Rabbi Moshe de Leon a few hundred years ago, who he claims to have discovered the book of the Zohar. And he published it, and the historians are torn about this. It seems, I don't have all the sources, that his wife claims that he didn't discover the Zohar, rather he wrote a book to replace the Zohar. I mean, as if it was writing the Zohar. Kind of like the book of the Kuzari. It's not necessarily that Rabbi Yonatan Halevy is telling the story the way it was. Rather, there was a story between the Kuzari king and the Jew and the rabbi and the Muslim and the Christian. And the details of the story, Rabbi Yonatan Halevy says, if I'm anyways going to tell you a story, I might as well tell you a story that you've heard about before. And so he writes his own narrative, and that's a normal literacy style of the medieval ages, is people write stories in the names of other people. So here, some say that Rabbi Moshe de Leon just wrote the Zohar as a book of Kabbalah, but not the book of Kabbalah. The Arizal didn't agree. The Arizal believed that this book of Kabbalah is the Zohar that we've always been waiting for, we've always been looking for. And the Arizal pushed the writings of the Zohar into the mainstream Jewish community. And since then, aside from a few communities, I'll tell you most importantly is the Yemenite Jewish community. The Yemenite Jewish community was torn into two by the teachings of the Zohar. Some Yemenite authorities said that this is the truth from Hashem, and some Yemenite authorities said this is the biggest idolatry we've ever heard of in our life. Because you're suddenly giving Hashem body parts, and you're making Hashem into 10 different groups, and they went all out against this. Many of these, because they were Maimonideans, they were the students of the Rambam, the generations after the Rambam. In Yemen, though, Rabbi Yichya Kapach, and Rabbi, I want to tell you his name was Rabbi Tzchak Halevy, I believe this was his name. One, Rabbi Kapach was against the Zohar. Rabbi Halevy, not necessarily related to me, he was just a Levi. He was for the Zohar, he was a Kabbalist, and they both held that it was Either one was heretical, meaning he held if you don't believe in Zohar, you're a heretic. And this one said if you believe in Zohar, you're a heretic. But they sat on the same bedin. So they were judged the whole life. They said then there were problems. At the end of their life, there were people who tried to kill each other, crazy things that happened there. But they agreed that it was an ideological battle, not a personal battle, and they sat on the same bedin. It didn't interfere in their halachic competence. So what we're going to be reading from today is based off of purely the Arizal, the Zohar, the writings of the Mekubalim, especially those of Baghdad, of Iraqi Jewry. And like I told you, this is accepted if you want. Don't want to accept it, that's fine. But I'm reading from what it says here. So this chapter, he says that there are going to be a few things we're going to discover. And I think it will make a lot of order, even for people who've been studying for a long time, to realize that there's order. Because we use a lot of words interchangeably, but we don't necessarily know what we're talking about. Mahi zo nikret olam haba. What is this thing that we say, olam haba, the next world? What is that? Ve'matai hu zmana, and when is it going to happen? Vim tashlum hagmul shel hatzadikim hu b'gan Eden u ba'olam haba. And does Hashem reward the tzaddikim in Gan Eden, Garden of Eden, or does He reward them in Olam Haba? We use those two words like they're the same thing, Gan Eden and Olam Haba, but clearly it's not. ומה יתרון יש לגוף הצדיק שבילה את ימיו בעסק התורה והמצוות? What good is going to happen to the body of a tzaddik who spent his whole life observing Torah ומצוות? מאחר שגם הוא שוכב בקבר כגוף הרשע בן הפרש. When he's also sitting in a grave, decomposing just like the rasha. So to the body, it didn't make a difference if you were a tzaddik or a rasha. To the soul, yes. But correct, so there's a midrash that the bodies of tzaddikim don't decompose. But at the end of the day, they're both in the ground. These are interesting questions because we talk a lot about these topics without answering these questions. If I would ask us these questions, we would probably mumble like this, like that, but it's not a strong answer. I'm sure this was a big debate between the Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, and the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman. They had an argument as to whether in the days of Mashiach, who's going to come back? At the Tchiyat HaMetim, at the resurrection of the dead, are the bodies coming back or just the souls coming back? Ramban says just the souls. What do you need a body for? It's a spiritual world. Rambam says, what do you mean why do you need a body? Your body worked hard to keep Torah mitzvot. So how would Hashem punish you? Your body should also be rewarded for. There are certain things that you didn't do in this world that maybe your body would have liked to do. Your body also deserves some kind of sachar. So this is what he's going to talk about. Ve'matai hu zman melech HaMashiach, and when is the King Mashiach going to come? Machar shlo nishar mishata alfei dehavi alma rak ma'at b'shanim. Especially now, a cup of water. Especially now that the world is supposed to end in 6,000 years, and we're very close to 6,000. So what's going to happen there?
Like 223 years away?
Right. ומה נעשה בנשמות וגופות הצדיקים בזמן שהעולם חרב? What is going to happen to the souls and bodies of the tzaddikim when the world is destroyed to make room for the next world? Meaning, if there's going to be an Olam Haba, this world is going to have to disappear. Thank you very much. If somebody wants water, we have it here in the cooler. So once Hashem gets rid of this world after 6,000 years, or whenever that happens, what's going to happen to the world? Is there going to be another world? Is there going to be another Torah? Is there going to be another people? What's going to happen exactly? What's happening there? In Yemot HaMashiach. I mean, the Rambam talks up until the days of Mashiach. The days of Mashiach are the last 1,000 years after the 6,000 years. What happens after 1,000 years? This is the question.
So it's a 7,000 year period.
Exactly.
After Shabbat.
Right. Let's say Shabbat. We watch this should start all over again. But this is what happens at the end of those 7,000 years. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'doro. Okay, so we have all these questions. Let's start getting into the answers. I don't promise you all the answers today, but I'm going to read and translate. So it's a different kind of class. I'm not going to be explaining things outside, but I'll explain to you what he says here, because Rabbi Yonatan Halevy is more authoritative than I am. ושמרת את המצווה היום לעשותם. In Parshat Vayetchanan it says, and you shall observe the mitzvot today in order to do them. Meaning, don't observe them tomorrow, observe them now. Piresh Rashi Zal, Rashi explains, Hayom la'asotam, you're going to observe them today. U'lemachar le'olam haba litoscha, and tomorrow, meaning in the next world, you'll receive reward for them. That's why the Torah says today. It could just say keep the mitzvot. Why does it keep the mitzvot today? Just keep the mitzvot today, so tomorrow, meaning in the next world, you'll be able to receive the reward for them. Ad kan Lashonah. This is the end of Rashi. Kischar mitzvot b'hai al maleka, because the Gemara says that in this world you don't receive reward for the mitzvot. Kedaman b'sof chulin. Like it says at the end of Masechet Chulin. Now, this concept of there's no reward in this world is a very old Jewish concept. In the Gemara, we find the Rishonim, the Chachamim. The argument about whether there's no reward in this world is not about whether a person can get reward or not. Some say you can't get reward at all in this world, it's all in the next world. Others say no, you can get reward in this world, but it's not the whole reward. And therefore, you still don't get your full reward in this world, because this world can't contain everything that you're going to get in the next world. So for example, if I wanted to pour that whole cooler into my cup, I wouldn't be able to. Now can I drink water in this cup?
Yeah.
Yes. The whole cooler? No. So you're going to have to wait either for a bigger cup or for a way to drink from the cooler, but just this world is unable to contain that tzachar, that reward. Veda, you should know. כי העולם הבא שכתב רש"י ז"ל, ששם נותן שכרם. The next world that Rashi mentions that you're going to get your reward in, הוא על זמן תחיית המתים. He's really referring to what we would call the resurrection of the dead. תחיית המתים. So write a few terms down. עולם הבא means next world. תחיית המתים means the resurrection of the dead. I'm going to add in here now. Yimot HaMashiach means the days of the Mashiach. Gan Eden is the Garden of Eden. And we're going to use these words a lot, but I want you to have them down. Shia nikret b'shem olam haba or b'shem la'atid lavo. So sometimes we call this time period of Tchiyat HaMetim either Olam Haba, like Rashi did, or we call it La'atid Lavo. You'll see in rabbinic literature it sometimes says in the future, which is yet to come. In the future. What future? It doesn't mean tomorrow, it means in the next world. So the term Olam Haba, Tchiyat HaMetim, and La'atid Lavo now are the same thing. They mean the same thing. K'detran Perek Vav D'Avot, like we say in Perkei Avot, B'shochbecha tishmor alecha. When you sleep, the Torah will protect you. What does it mean? B'kever, in our graves. V'kitzota hi tesichecha. When you wake up, it will be your conversation le'olam haba, in the next world. So what do the Kabbalists say? It says that when you sleep, right, the Torah is going to guard you in your grave. But when you wake up, in the next world, it'll be your discussion. Mivuar mizeh, from here we learn, shakitzot hashkiva min hakever shia tchiyah. That when a person gets out of their grave, when they wake up, that's called the revival of the dead. Kari la olam haba, and they call it olam haba. So olam haba, the next world, is when all the people who passed away are going to come back again and be alive. V'hachinami amrinan b'Sanhedrin, and that's what we say in Tractate Sanhedrin. Ve'elu she'en lehem chelek l'olam haba. We always read, all the Jews have a portion of the world to come. There's an exception to that rule. Not everybody has a portion of the world to come. There are those who don't have a portion in the world to come. One of them is Haomer en Tchiyat HaMetim min Torah. Somebody who says that according to the Torah, there is no revival of the dead. Nobody's coming back. Because it doesn't say that explicitly in the Torah. So we don't believe in it. So the person who denies the revival of the dead loses their portion in the world to come. V'amrinan ala b'Gemara, they say about him in the Gemara, so just because a person says that it's not in the Torah, you're going to take away his portion in the world to come. Tana, הוא כפר בתחיית המתים, לפיכך לא יהיה לו חלק עמהם. He said, because this person says he doesn't believe in the next world, so Hashem says, great, so you don't have to go to the next world. I mean, you don't believe in it, you don't believe in resurrection, so I'm not going to make it happen for you. There's a book by Rabbi Gedalia Shaar. It was one of the big Ashkenazi Balei Musar. And he writes that in general in life, like Hashgacha Pratit, when a person has divine providence, Hashem watches over you. Some people say they don't believe in Hashgacha Pratit. And what does Rabbi Shaar say? He says if you don't believe in Hashgacha Pratit, so it doesn't happen for you. If you don't believe that Hashem watches you every step of your life, Hashem says fine, live a normal life, I don't care. But if a person says, I believe in Hashgacha Pratit, then they find it everywhere. So why does the person who doesn't believe not find divine providence everywhere? Not because he's not looking for it. Because for him, it really doesn't happen. It's a difficult concept, but it's, you don't believe in something. So fine, for you, I can make sure that it doesn't exist. From here we understand, the Olam Haba Haniskar b'Mishnah, that which we say, Olam Haba, the next world, in the Mishnah, Meforash b'Braita shu azman tchiyat hametim. It's the same thing as the resurrection of the dead. So, Olam Haba, the next world, resurrection of the dead, it's the same thing. He brings a few sources from the Chumash, from Bereshit, from Chizkiyahu, the king of Yehuda.
You said again, you said the revival of the dead is the same as the next world?
Correct. I mean, when they say Olam Haba, in these sources, they're also referring to it as the revival of the dead. When people are going to come back to life.
Is Tikkun Olam also in part of that, or no? Or is that's the process of Olam Haba, or to get to Olam Haba, right?
Tikkun Olam would be the process of bringing about the redemption. So again, we're trying to figure out the differences in all these terms. What he's doing now is systematically showing us, and I'm skipping some of his proofs because it's tedious. He's showing us that the revival of the dead is referred to by our rabbis consistently as the next world. So they interchange those words, but it's the same thing. From all these sources that you can understand, it's explained, the Olam Haba hu Olam HaTchiyah. The next world is the world where everyone comes back to life. V'sham ba'olam haba, and it's in that same next world, hu netilat scharam shel mitzvot. K'mo shekatav Rashi. That's the place where people get their reward for the mitzvot. Like Rashi said at the beginning. V'sham hu ba'olam haba tashlum hagmul ha'ikari. V'lo began Eden. A person is rewarded in the next world. That's the main place where people get a reward, but not in Gan Eden. Gan Eden is not the same place as the next world. People use those words as the same. Olam haba, tchiyat hametim, le'atid lavo. Those are all the same word. Just different words for the same concept. But Gan Eden is not the same place. Ki Gan Eden eno asui. The only reason why Gan Eden exists, kim nishmor et nishmot hatzadikim asher sham ad shuvam lechayot. ולחזור לגופם אשר עזבו בקבר בעולם הזה. The only reason the next Gan Eden exists, Gan Eden is a place where tzadikim's souls go while they're waiting for the world to reach this place called the next world.
Oh, wow.
Gan Eden is the waiting room. It's like when you go to you go to the airplane and you fly first class, they have the special place in Delta and United and Allah. It's like the lounge, you go there, you drink, you eat, you sleep, you shower. What are you doing? While all the other people are waiting for their flight at the gate like sardines, you're waiting in your lounge. A tzaddik merits to have this Gan Eden. A Gan Eden is literally a place that he waits for the next world.
Would that coincide with the like Bet Midrash, like that they like you hear sometimes?
So we have to figure out. So when we hear the stories about the next world and again, probably what we're hearing now are Gan Eden, not Olam Haba, because they're not in Olam Haba. Because if you're not in Olam Haba, they're not in Olam Haba.
Right.
Is this a period of time between the 6,000 and 7,000 years?
This is a period of time between a person's passing away and when the world reaches that place.
It's 7,000.
6.
6, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Gan Eden, now we've clarified. Gan Eden is a place where souls wait before they return to their body in Olam Haba.
So it's cool. That's really cool.
Okay, so we're trying to clarify terms here. Because remember all the questions we asked in the beginning? We need to answer them. But we can't answer them without understanding what on earth we're talking about. And until I read this essay, I was in such confusion about the next world. Not that I now understand everything, but at least there's order. Order. When there's order in something, you begin to understand it. כי גם הארץ היא שומרת את עצמות גופם, עד אשר ישוב לחיות. Gan Eden has an opposite. has a counterpart. The counterpart is the earth. The earth is there to keep the bodies of the tzaddikim, while Gan Eden is there to keep the souls of the tzaddikim. So in Gan Eden, there are no bodies.
Just
In Olam Haba, there are bodies. But in Gan Eden, there are no bodies, because the bodies are in the earth here. Ve'en b'Gan Eden tashlum gmul v'sachar mitzvot. In Gan Eden, there is no reward for the mitzvot. כי מה השכר יש לגוף הנקבר על מה שטרח כל ימיו בתורה ומצוות ביחד עם הנשמה. So he's adopting here a Rambam view. Or it could be I'm mistaken. Could be it's the other way around. You know how many years it's been since Rambam argued and I remember learning that? Rabbi Yehuda Fataya. Here, he says, how could it be that your body, Rabbi Yehuda Fataya, how is it going to be that your body is not going to be rewarded for all the things it did in this world? You did mitzvot with your hands, you did mitzvot with your legs, you stayed away from avirot with your body. So Gan Eden, where there's just souls, it can't be that your body is going to disappear. Is that the proper way Hashem would reward us? נשאר כמה שנים בקבר ואחר כך חוזר לעפר. The body is going to stay for a few years in the grave and then disappear into nothingness, into the earth. וכי זו תורה וזו שכרה. That's the Torah, that's the reward that a body is going to get for working so hard. Understand again, very carefully, that what you hear today being sold in the streets as Kabbalah is not Kabbalah. And I'm telling you what I mean. We always hear, you have to be more spiritual, forget about the physical, the physical and the spiritual, and you hear these terms a lot. These concepts were brought out by the Hasidic movement, which in its origins has a war between the physical body and the spiritual soul. According to Kabbalah, there is no war. This is a wholesome picture. The body works with your soul to do the mitzvot. It's not that your body is fighting because your body hates the soul. There's not such a... That dynamic doesn't exist here. And therefore, according to Mekubal, who's looking at the world in a wholesome fashion, he says, why would my body's a part of me also. It works so hard to keep the mitzvot. Now you're telling me it's just going to disintegrate into the ground and my soul is going to get rewarded? That's like saying after 120 years, the husband is going to go to Gan Eden and the wife is going to disintegrate into the ground. They didn't do it alone. They did it together. They did different jobs. Fine, so what? But there has to be a reward. This teaching, Zot Torah v'Zot Schara, this is the reward that the Torah would give you? That's what you think? This was said historically by the students of Rabbi Akiva. Remember when Rabbi Akiva was murdered by the Romans and they were combing his flesh off with iron combs. And he, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and they tell him, Rabbi, Zot Torah v'Zot Schara. That's the way Hashem rewards the Torah scholar. That's where this teaching comes from. Meaning that you think that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's how he rewards in the world of perfection. He's going to reward tzaddikim only their souls.
It's actually Moshe asking.
Very good, but Moshe is asking,
Hashem.
but not in the Torah.
No,
In Midrashim.
Midrash.
Okay,
yeah.
correct. Yeah, so Moshe also asked. There's a famous, very good, she's right. There's a famous line though, in which we're saying that's what Hashem is good for.
That's what our body's good for.
We're complaining at Hashem on this one.
Oh, gotcha.
Meaning Hashem, we're not complaining at Hashem. We're saying it can't be that Hashem would be so unjust. See, in this world, we're willing to say we don't understand what happens. So it could be Hashem is being just and we don't get it. But in the world where everything is supposed to make sense, it can't be that would be the way things make sense. והלא גם גופי הרשעים הם שוכבי קבר בין הפרש. The bodies of the dead people are laying in the earth, of the evil people are laying in the earth just like the tzaddikim. So you tell me that a rasha and a tzaddik are going to have the same end? I once met a rabbi who was helping a girl who had left her Hasidic community, of the Satmar Jewish community. I understand why people leave, but she left. And she went, you see, in some people's heads, when they grow up in such a community, they're taught Jews, great. Non-Jews, evil. There's a certain head they have, it's a headspace. And so when they think of, I don't want to be Jewish anymore, it's not like, okay, so let me go to university and get a job and go work and have a family and children. In their head, it's, no, let me go to the streets of Manhattan and do drugs and become an alcoholic and sleep on the streets. Because there is no other option in their head. So She did just that. She left her community. She went to live in the streets. She got piercings in her whole face and her body and she was a drug addict and she was a homeless person. And on and on and on. And her brothers always tried to bring her back home. She wanted to come back home. So finally, they dragged her to the office of a certain rabbi who lived in Manhattan. I heard the story from him. And he said that she came into his office and he was sitting at his desk and she turns the chair around and she puts her back towards him. He said, I don't want to talk to you. But she couldn't even say it in her normal English accent because she grew up only speaking Yiddish. So she couldn't even she said, I don't want to speak to you. She already sounded Jewish. I said, what's your name? I told her her name was like Sprinza, like something like, something so... I said, do you believe in God? She says, no, I don't believe in God. I said, okay. Do you believe in the Torah? I don't believe in the Torah. Do you believe in that? We've got a list of questions. Fine, it's okay. So from what I understand you saying, the Satmar Rebbe of blessed memory and Adolf Hitler, Yamach Shmo V'Zichro, they're in the same place right now. And she spins around her chair, Chaz v'shulam! How could you say such a thing? He said, oh, so you believe in something. Why don't you sit down and have a conversation with me? Sometimes you have to what is it that a person doesn't... How could you tell me that a tzaddik and a rasha are both in the same place and the same thing is happening to them? Now, if you have the midrash like Rachel quoted earlier, that tzaddikim's bodies don't decompose. Yeah. Okay, so I don't know what to do with this midrash in this context, but clearly here they hold that even the tzaddik's body would decompose. It could be that over there it's like they're exceptional tzaddikim, that their bodies don't. That could be the answer. It's not a contradiction. Rather, they're very holy, like the Avot Olam, the forefathers, that their bodies stay the same. But a normal tzaddik is a normal human being. Shaz באותו זמן גם הגוף הוא מחובר עם הנשמה. Sorry, נכנע. אבל באמת עיקר תשלום השכר והגמול של המצוות הוא בעולם הבא. Rather, the real reward is in the next world. Shu b'zman tchiat hametim, which is the same time as the resurrection of the dead. She'az b'oto zman, at the same time, gam haguf u'mechubar im hanshama. The body is now reunited with the soul. U'shnehem hem mekablim hasachar biyachad, and they both receive the reward together, just like they worked hard to observe the Torah and the mitzvot together. K'mo shekimu et mitzvot biyachad, just like they worked hard to keep the mitzvot together. U'mitam zeh, and therefore, for this reason, en kibul hasachar b'gan Eden, the reason why the reward is not given in Gan Eden is because it would be unjust to reward just the soul and not to reward the body. Now this next part is complicated. According to the Mekubalim, people don't just die. Rather, they leave the world, they're judged, and sometimes they come back. This starts to get complicated. By the way, don't even start me on what kind of body do they come back in, because they clearly didn't come to the world in the same body twice. I'm not a Kabbalist. You go deal with the Kabbalist about this. Here, he wants to give another reason, because this is a logical reason, but he wants to give another reason why it is that a person can get the reward in Gan Eden, but they have to wait for Olam Haba. I could give you another reason why a person does not get a reward in Gan Eden. Because the rabbis teach us in Masechet Kiddushin, אין השכירות משתלמת אלא בסוף. You only pay somebody at the end. Not like today when you pay people up front. You pay someone up front, you get kissed your money goodbye. Yeah? You wait till the end. The person finishes their job and they get paid. ולכן כל זמן שהתורה והמצוות נוהגים בעולם, and this is a dangerous thought here, but so long as the Torah and mitzvot are still applicable in the world, because the world still exists. If the world ceases to exist, then it doesn't mean Hashem is getting rid of His Torah, but something has to change, because if I don't have a body and I don't have parents, I don't have children, so my mitzvot structure has to change. But so long as the Torah and mitzvot are still applying in the world, because there are still people alive, and even though you're in Gan Eden, אין הצדיקים נוטלים שכרם אפילו אחרי פטירתם, the tzaddikim do not receive their reward in Gan Eden even after they pass, כי אולי ישובה בגלגול על חיסור איזה מצווה. Because they could be reincarnated and come back into the world because they did not do a certain mitzvah properly. Even a tzaddik if they're talking to them. אבל לעתיד לבוא, but in the next world, בזמן תחיית המתים, in the time when the body comes back, שאז יתבטלו המצוות. Don't ask me on this question, because we'll talk about it in another part of the review for that. When the mitzvot yitbatlu mikol vakol, entirely the mitzvot will be gone. Like it says in Masechet Nida, that's what our rabbis tell us, that in Olam Haba the mitzvot are over. Like the Navi tells us, Torah Chadasha Me'titetzeh, there'll be a new Torah that comes from me. It's not referring to the New Testament. There will be a time in the world where Hashem, because the reality of the world is changing, you're now living in the days of redemption. There has to be. But nothing changed in the world to get us a new Torah yet. You understand? But this pasuk is misused in that context. But this is where he's referring to. B'inyan kla'im bebeged hamet shumutar. We actually had this conversation in Kollel about putting tzitzit on the deceased people's bodies. So the question here was, could you put klaim? What is klaim? A forbidden mixture of a fabric on a person's kilayim, on a person's body. Could you bury a person in shatnez? The Kamar Le Rabbi Yosef says, Zot omeret mitzvot betelot atilevo. Says you're allowed to do it because in the next world you're not going to have mitzvot. So when this body comes back to life, it won't be forbidden to wear what it is that it's
Yeah,
wearing.
he's not going to the world to come when he's dead. Yes.
But his body is not going to be alive either to be violating anything. וכתבו התוספות right שאף על פי כשיחיה עתיד יעמוד בראשו שתגבר, and even though he's going to stand up in the resurrection with the same clothes, Rashi writes something similar. And says, and therefore, what happens in the next world? What happens in the next world is that's the end of time. In which case, it's like the statute of limitations. It's over. A person cannot be summoned back to the world as a reincarnation because the world's already over. So I will reward him, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in a time when already it's for sure, it's certain. It's almost like I noticed a trend. In the last few years, we lost a number of big tzaddikim in the Jewish community. Very unfortunate, but a lot of righteous people. The example that pops in my head is Rabbi Yosef. I remember, I was alive in Israel when he was there. I met Chavod Yosef. And in his lifetime, I used to be in certain yeshivot where you were not even allowed to mention his name. They hated him. At one time, Rabbi Yosef, there's a big controversy in Yerushalayim. And they said that, I have actually pictures in my bookshelf. I took pictures and then my friend printed in a book some of those pictures. The question was whether the conversions done by the Israeli army were good or not. There were some ultra-Orthodox rabbis that wanted to say that they were cutting corners, they were making too many Russians Jewish, they didn't like it, and they decided all the conversions in the chief rabbinate of the military are not kosher. And the chief rabbinate of Israel wasn't sure. It's like a body that doesn't, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. The chief rabbinate who makes problems for all the conversions in the world, they are making problems for the chief rabbinate of the Israeli army that maybe in the army you consider him Jewish, but when he is released into civilian life, we won't accept him. You understand the absurdity of this?
Yeah.
It's like it's a circus. So they decided they would reach out to Rabbi Yosef. And Rabbi Yosef sat and he sat and he sat and he told you something that I've told you already a long time ago. It's very difficult to convert somebody and to make it not kosher. Something really bad has to happen in that bedin. You have to have a guy in the bedin who's like an undercover imam or something. You have to have a situation in which there's it's very difficult. And so Rabbi Yosef writes a letter and he says, all the conversions done by the chief army, I accept them as if they're under my supervision.
Wow.
And do you know what happened in the Jewish community the next day? So all these soldiers who converted, they were rejoicing. And when I woke up in Yerushalayim, and I went to my in-laws' neighborhood. They were not my in-laws yet, I didn't know them, but I went there to go shopping for books. The walls were covered in flyers that said, they didn't write rabbi, so I'm just, they wrote, Ovadia Yosef equals reformi. He's a reform. That's like a big curse. Then another one said, Ovadia Yosef Rasha Gamur, is an evil person. And then they wrote already that in Israel, they're going to have to start a book of Yuchasin, of ancestry. They're going to have to figure out who's really Jewish and who isn't, and we'll only marry people that are written in the same books as we are, and blah, 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 blah. And they went crazy. And people threw his books out of yeshiva. Now all of a sudden, and this was like a normal thing, this happened like every other month. Rabbi said this, I'm like this. Then he passes away. And everybody starts printing books of Rabbi Yosef and doing memorial service of Rabbi Yosef and telling stories on the radio of Rabbi Yosef. The yeshiva that didn't have his books, all of a sudden they got someone to sponsor a library of Rabbi Yosef's books. And I'm watching this, you know what we call this in Hebrew? We call it tzviut. It's hypocrisy. There's a famous rabbi, a famous teaching from King Yanai. You don't remember Yanai, the king? Who was he? He was the brother-in-law of Shimon ben Shetach. It was Rabbi Shimon ben Shetach was a big rabbi, and he was married to Rabbi Shimon ben Shetach's sister called Shlom Tzion the queen. King Yanai had it out. His job was to murder all the Torah scholars to get his hands on. He starts killing them. And at a certain point, he tells his wife the following sentence. He says, "Listen to me." He says, "Don't be afraid from the Pushim, from the Pharisees, the rabbis, because they hate us. They don't like us. So you know that. So if you know someone doesn't like you, so you know to be careful from them. So don't be afraid from them." He says, "Don't be afraid from the tzdukim. They're our friends, because they like us, because we're killing the rabbis." He says, "But you should be afraid hizari min atzvuim," he tells her, from the hypocrites. She'osim maaseh zimri, that they perform acts like Zimri in the Tanam, where there's all kinds of Zimri. Remember, he was killed by Pinchas with a spear in front of all the Jewish people for doing immoral acts. So they do acts of Zimri, umevakshim sachar kepinchas, and they expect you to reward them like Pinchas, the righteous one. They do ugly things, but they want you to treat them like they're Pinchas. He says, be afraid from the hypocrites. Don't be afraid from your enemies. You know they're going to kill you. Don't be afraid from your friends. They're your friends. Be afraid from the people who are one thing inside and they are on the outside. Those are the people you have to be afraid from. These people put out a sign on their forehead for me. These are the people you should be afraid of. Because once you're alive, they're going to make your life miserable and they're going to chase you. And then the moment you die, oh, the biggest tzaddik of the generation, we're going to do a fundraiser in his memory. You know exactly what these people are coming after. But, I'll tell you the psychology behind it. When I ask people, so who's your rabbi? Somebody will tell me, my rabbi. I had a guy, Rabbi Shlomo Krabach is my rabbi. Another guy said, my rabbi. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov is my rabbi. I said, my rabbi. Rabbi, give me a name. I said, they're not your rabbis. You never met them in your life. He said, no, but I listened to their classes and I said, but they're not your rabbis. You don't know them. They didn't know you. I said, how can you say that? But I said, your rabbi is good for you because he can never tell you no. Because he can't pull you by your ear out of the synagogue and say, listen to me, you're doing something not correct. That's why he's your rabbi, because you like him, because he's nice to you. And I said, it's hard for you to have a rabbi who's alive, right? It's very difficult for you. Well, with another rabbi. I said, okay, listen, I agree with you that we're not righteous like Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Okay, fine. I'm not pretending. Not me, find somebody else. But find somebody who can also tell you no. What happens once Rabbi Yosef dies is that now he can't tell you no anymore. He's not going to tell you that those converts of the army are kosher. He's not going to make problems for you anymore. Oh, now he has no authority over me? Great, of course I can respect him. That's the psychology behind it. Here what's happening is a similar concept. So long as the world is around, and the tzaddikim are in Gan Eden, we don't know if they're going to have to come back. They're going to be summoned back to this world for a gilgul. But once the world ends, then, okay, so the case is closed. So now we go with whatever we have. That's the rationale behind this. I want to read you one last paragraph for today, and we're going to continue next week. So now, what's the reason why in the next world we're not going to have mitzvot anymore? It sounds like a very strange thing.
Because we're going to be like the angels, where we
Don't
we have no evil inclination, we only do what we're told to do.
Interesting. Okay. But it sounds like a strange concept, especially for people who believe in a Torah that says it's going to last forever and ever and ever. Let's read. V'tam shamitzvot b'terot atidavo. And the reason why the mitzvot are nullified in the next world. Nira laniut dati. So this is not a fact, this is a thought. It appears to my humble opinion. Lefi shlo nitnu haTorah v'mitzvot, because the Torah mitzvot were only given kim kedei letzaref behem et haberiyot, in order to purify people. What is a tzaref, literally?
What's a riff?
What is a tzoref?
Like silversmith.
He's a silversmith. What does silversmiths do?
They put it in the heat. They pound it out.
Why are they doing
Purify,
that?
rectify.
They're trying to get in all the
impurities.
impure metals
impure
or
from-
whatever that's
yeah.
in there.
Just
That's the reason why we have Torah mitzvot in this world, is in order to purify us. וכמו שכתוב רז"ל, like a rabbi saying, ויקרא רבה, pasuk, אמרת אלוהה צרופה, that these are the words of Hashem, צרופה. Now it's again using the same word of purification. וכבר בעץ חיים, like it says in the writings of the Eitz Chaim, which are Kabbalistic writings. ובשאר הגלגולים, and Reb Chaim Vital writes in the Gates of Reincarnation, and go look at those sources. וכיוון שנצרפו הבריות, and because the world has already been purified, the human beings have already been purified, ונבדלו הזוכים לעולם הבא ממי שאינם זוכים. And the world has already been separated between those who will merit the next world and those who will not merit the next world. So that purpose is already done. That job, those tests, those reasons where see, show me that you can hang on. That's over. The testing period is over. We know now who passed and who failed. So now there's no more purpose left for the Torah mitzvot. Because those who have been purified are already pure. And those who are not, it's over. Even though we know as a fact that the Torah will never change, God forbid. That's one of the 13 principles of our faith. If someone believes the Torah will change, you can't count them as a minyan. You can't be not part of our community. I'm not saying our community like Kehillat HaShamayim. The person would come to convert, let's say, in a bed din. So I accept everything except for I think the Torah can change. I think I can be sometimes a Buddhist on Tuesdays or a Muslim on Wednesdays. So we tell them, listen, with all due respect, come back when you're ready. Torah, we believe, is an eternal truth. This is not considered a change. Because the Torah did not change. We're not changing the Torah. We didn't make any differences in the Torah. Now the tzaddikim are deceased, and when a person is dead, they're not obligated in the Torah mitzvot. Like our rabbi tells us on Masechet Shabbat, Kevan shemet adam, once a person is dead, nasa chofshi min Torah mitzvot. He's free from the Torah mitzvot. Da'af al gav shechazru v'chayu, enam chayvim od kevan shekvar nitzrefu. And once they come back into the world, because they've already been exempt, they're no longer obligated in the Torah mitzvot. We didn't destroy the Torah. It's like people, I'll give you a very simple example, and with this we'll end for today. And God willing, next week we're going to talk more about the next world. Not next world.
Next
In the next
world.
Next week we're going to talk about the next world. That's not the same. And there's a famous halakha in the Shulchan Aruch that if you were to take a knife that you used an hour ago to cut a steak with, a hot steak, and now it's clean with soap and everything, it's clean. And now you cut a radish, an onion, something sharp, with that same knife, that onion becomes bsari, it becomes meaty. And you can't have it with cheese or dairy food. Because the flavor of that meat went into the knife. And when you press down on the knife, two things happen. One is that vegetable is a sharp vegetable. It's not a carrot. It's a spicy thing. It's a sharp thing. And so it heats up. It pulls out flavor. And the pressure of the knife creates duchka de sakina. The pressure of the knife causes it to heat up. Then the flavor leaves the meat and goes into the onion. And therefore, you'll go to many people's houses and they have a meat knife and a dairy knife and a parve knife. Why the parve knife? Because you're going to cut onions. You don't know what you want to eat them with. So you have a knife, you can do whatever you want. Fine. In my house, you won't find this. Why? Because we don't believe in this halakha. What does it mean you don't believe in this halakha? It says in the Shulchan Aruch. Correct. It says Shulchan Aruch. But my rabbi is a student of the students of the Shulchan Aruch. And the understanding is, you can't change a halakha. That's what halakha says. But what can change?
What, the knife?
The knife can change. The reality of the knife can change. Have you seen knives from 100 years ago? They look porous. They look like ceramic. You ever seen like a ceramic pot, like a clay pot? That's what it looks like. The knives are mechus pasim. They're coarse. Very good. They're coarse then. So it's like when you cut something, yeah, there actually could be flavor in there. You might actually end up cutting something and it will taste like what you cut with it before. It's not like sometimes you have plastic containers or things like that there's food in them, and then you take. So a week later you can still smell what was in there before. That's what the knife used to be like. Today, though, you're dealing with knife that's stainless steel. It doesn't absorb.
They're heated to a high degree, 440 degrees.
What I'll tell you like this: when you cut a steak and then you wash it off, and you cut an onion 5 minutes later, if you taste the onion, are you gonna taste the meat? No. Halakha says, "Tam kikal." How do you check if things are meat or dairy? By tasting them. By tasting them. What happens if some meat falls into your lasagna? Your cheese lasagna. What do you do? Or it's better. Dairy falls into your chicken soup. What do you do?
Take the
It's
dairy.
nullified.
You
So
give
we
the
talk about
recipe,
nullified in
yeah.
60, but nullified in 60 is not a Sephardic halakha. Do you know that? The halakha is that you go to your non-Jewish next door neighbor, or somebody who understands in food. You know, they have a good taste, and you say, "Taste this for me. Does it taste like a nice dairy chicken soup?" And they taste it. Don't taste dairy at all. You bring it home and you eat it. Tam ki'ikar. The taste is what makes something meat or dairy. It's a halakha in Shulchan Aruch. In steps the Rama. Where does the Rama live? In Poland. And he says, "But what can I do? We don't trust our non-Jewish neighbors. They're busy trying to kill us. They're busy trying to... So I can't trust them. He knows I'm not allowed to have meat and milk. So because I can't trust them, I have to look. What do the rabbis say in the Gemara? The rabbis say that anything that's 1/60th, it probably doesn't taste like meat or dairy. And therefore it says, we cannot ask a non-Jew, and therefore what we do is we just rely on this 1/60th. You can have a mixture of 1 and 30, and if it doesn't taste like dairy, it's not dairy. You can have a mixture of 1 and 70, but if it tastes like dairy, it's dairy. And Peret has an interesting chidush here. So the Ashkenazi guy who follows the Ramah, he can't ask his next door neighbor. But what can he do? He can have a Sephardic person ask the next door neighbor. And once it becomes okay for the Sephardic person to eat, then it becomes okay for the Ashkenazi guy to eat also. You see how that works? People think it's just
Ashkenazim don't trust this one.
this might be a different problem, and Baruch has editing issues to do now. But the bottom line is that this is a similar concept. The concept is, it's not that the Torah changed. I will Chaz v'Shalom never tell you the Shulchan Aruch changed. The reality that the Shulchan Aruch is applying himself. If the Shulchan Aruch was a word of Hashem and he didn't give us any reasons, but Shulchan Aruch gave us a reason. The reason why the knife makes something meaty is because it passes flavor. And if it doesn't pass flavor, Rabbi Yosef Karo himself will tell you that it's not a problem. So then why are you holding on to it? Tradition. That's for Fiddler on the Roof. That's not for halakha. In the Ben Midrash, we don't watch movies. In the Ben Midrash, we follow Shulchan Aruch. And therefore, the same thing happens here. Once the tzaddik leaves the world, it's not that he, God forbid, stopped keeping the Torah. The reality of it, he doesn't live anymore in a dimension in which he is obligated on the Torah. So it's not that he changed the Torah, he destroyed the Torah. He simply lives in a sphere, in a realm, where Torah and mitzvot are not applicable. By whose order? By the order of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In that realm, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has full jurisdiction. Now what happens there with the Torah mitzvot? What do we follow there? Okay, that's what we got waiting for next week with others.